The king was, however, favored by the Lord by the expert arrangement of the devotees. This means that the pure devotee of the Lord can favor a neophyte more liberally than the Lord. Pure devotees, therefore, never commit an offense at the feet of another pure devotee. An offense at the lotus feet of the Lord is sometimes excused by the merciful Lord, but an offense at the feet of a devotee is very dangerous for one who actually wants to make progress in devotional service. So, here, if we take shelter of pure devotees of the Lord, then uh, even if Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is unwilling to bestow his mercy upon us, then he will become mercifully inclined. And similarly, when we offend a pure devotee of the Lord, then the Supreme Lord, who might have previously been mercifully inclined towards us, will withdraw that mercy. Uh, Offense at the lotus feet of a pure devotee is very, very dangerous. It is considered to be like the rampage executed by a mad elephant. As long as the Lord remained at Puri, thousands of his devotees used to come to see him during the Rath Yatra, car festival of Lord Jagannath. During the car festival, the washing of the Gundicha temple under the direct supervision of the Lord was an important function. The Lord's congregational Sankirtan movement at Puri was a unique exhibition for the mass of people. That is the way to turn the mass mind towards spiritual realization. The Lord inaugurated the system of mass Sankirtan, and leaders of all countries can take advantage of the spiritual movement in order to keep the mass of people in a pure state of peace and friendship with one another. And at least um, leaders of our movement, they can encourage Harinam Sankirtan, Nagar Sankirtan more and more and more. We can begin by having longer kirtans on Ekadashis, and then you can add one more day, another another day in the month, another day in the month, another day in the month, until at least in a week we have a few days where we engage in 24-hour kirtans, and we should also do this in the streets. This will also attract our own minds towards Prabhupada's instructions. It will attract us back to Krishna consciousness. So in areas where the practice or propagation of Krishna consciousness is weak, if we engage in mass Nagar Sankirtan, mass Harinam Sankirtan, then those areas can be revitalized. Then our desires to engage in other forms of the practice and propagation of Krishna consciousness will be reawakened by the mercy of the holy names. This is now the demand of the present human society all over the world. Um, and this is also the demand of the members of ISKCON, that we want spiritual peace and spiritual friendship with one another, and we want to progress in Krishna consciousness, the purpose for which we initially came to Krishna consciousness. After some time, the Lord again started on his tour towards northern India, and he decided to visit Vrindavan and its neighboring places. He passed through the jungles of Jharkhand, Madhya Bharat, central India, and all the wild animals also joined the Sankirtan movement. The wild tigers, elephants, bears, and deer all together accompanied the Lord, and the Lord accompanied them in Sankirtan. By this, he proved that by the propagation of the Sankirtan movement, congregational chanting and glorifying of the name of the Lord, even the wild animals can live in peace and friendship. And what to speak of men who are supposed to be civilized? No man in the world will refuse to join the Sankirtan movement. Nor is the Lord's Sankirtan movement restricted to any caste, creed, color, or species. Here is direct evidence of his great mission. He allowed even the wild animals to partake in his great movement. So the idea is, all of us, no matter how animalistic we are, we can take shelter of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We can pronounce this mantra, we can sing this mantra loudly, and we can help similar animalistic people increase in their Krishna consciousness. Even wild animals have done this by Lord Chaitanya's mercy. We are also many times uh, of the opinion that we are wild animals. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu allows us to progress in Krishna consciousness by taking advantage of his great opinion, great mission. This is his opinion, that no matter how animalistic we are, we can partake in his great movement by taking advantage of his great movement. On his way back from Vrindavan, he first came to Prayag. where he met Rupa Goswami along with his younger brother Anupama. Then he came down to Varanasi, Benares, where he became the guest of Sri Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhara, assisted by a Maharashtra Brahmin. At that time, Varanasi was headed by a great sannyasi of the Mayavada school named Sripad Prakashananda Saraswati. When the Lord was at Varanasi, the people in general became more attracted to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on account of his mass Sankirtan movement. Wherever he visited, especially the Vishwanath temple. The Vishwanath temple is the temple of Lord Shiva. Varanasi is actually Lord Shiva's place. It is his holy abode. And the central temple is the Kashi Vishwanath temple. The Vishwanath temple. Wherever he visited, especially the Vishwanath temple, thousands of pilgrims would follow him. Some were attracted by his bodily features, and others were attracted by his melodious songs glorifying the Lord. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would sing, and thousands of people would follow him. The Mayavadi sannyasis designate themselves as Narayana. They think that they are Narayana. They think that they are the supreme absolute truth. Varanasi is still overflooded with many Mayavadi sannyasis. And that is the same situation even now. Some people who saw the Lord in his Sankirtan party considered him to be actually Narayan. And this report reached the camp of the great sannyasi Prakashananda. So some people, they saw him and they concluded this must be Lord Narayan. And someone told Prakashananda Saraswati this. In India, there is always a kind of spiritual rivalry between the Mayavada and Bhagavata schools. And thus, when the news of the Lord reached Prakashananda, he knew that the Lord was a Vaishnava sannyasi, and therefore he minimized the value of the Lord before those who brought him the news. He deprecated the activities of the Lord because of his preaching the Sankirtan movement, which was, in his opinion, nothing but religious sentiment. Prakashananda was a profound student of the Vedanta, and he advised his followers to give attention to the Vedanta and not indulge in Sankirtan. This was Prakashananda Saraswati's misunderstanding. He thought that the Vedanta does not promote chanting the holy names of the Lord, and that chanting the holy names of the Lord is a substandard activity, and the actual standard activity is to study the Vedanta Sutra under the guidance of Shankaracharya's commentary. One devotee Brahmana, who became a devotee of the Lord, did not like the criticism of Prakashananda, and he went to the Lord to express his regrets. He told the Lord that when he uttered the Lord's name before the sannyasi Prakashananda, the latter strongly criticized the Lord, although the Brahman heard Prakashananda uttering several times the name Chaitanya. The Brahmana was astonished to see that the sannyasi Prakashananda could not vibrate the sound Krishna even once, although he uttered the name Chaitanya several times. The Lord smilingly explained to the devotee Brahmana why the Mayavadi cannot utter the holy name of Krishna. The Mayavadis are offenders at the lotus feet of Krishna, although they utter always Brahman, Atma, or Chaitanya, etc. Because they are offenders at the lotus feet of Krishna, they are actually unable to utter the holy name of Krishna. Because they are offensive towards Krishna, they cannot utter Krishna's name. Krishna and Krishna's name are identical. The name Krishna and the personality of Godhead, Krishna, are identical. There is no difference in the absolute realm between the name, form, or person of the absolute truth, because in the absolute realm, everything is transcendental bliss. There is no difference between the body and the soul for the personality of Godhead Krishna. Thus, he is different from the living entity who is always different from his outward body. And here is a famous Padma Purana statement on this. Nama Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasavigraha Purna Shuddho Nityamukto Bhinnatvan Namanamino. Quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, chapter 17.133. The holy name of Krishna is transcendently blissful. It bestows all spiritual benedictions, for it is Krishna himself, the reservoir of all pleasure. Krishna's name is complete, and it is the form of all transcendental mellows. It is not a material name under any condition, and it is no less powerful than Krishna himself. Since Krishna's name is not contaminated by the material qualities, there is no question of its being involved with Maya. Krishna's name is always liberated and spiritual. It is never conditioned by the laws of material nature. This is because the name of Krishna and Krishna himself are identical. That There is no distinction between the Lord and his body and so on. That is uh, very clearly brought out by Sri Madhvacharya and Sri Baladev Vidyabhushan. Sri Baladev Vidyabhushan has quoted in his Prameya Ratnavali from the Narada Pancharatra text that Madhvacharya has quoted earlier, which says Nirdosha Purna Guna Vigraha Atma Tantro Nischetanaatmaka Sharira Gunaisha Hina Ananda Matra Karpada Mukhodaradhi Sarvatra Cha Swagata Bheda Vivarjita Atma. There are no intrinsic, internal, factual distinctions in himself, in his self, because his body is exclusively blissful. His hands, his feet, his face, his mouth, his stomach, and so on. And he does not have an unconscious body, nor does he have any material qualities. He is self dependent, and his form uh, and his qualities are spotless and perfect. So, from this very important statement, Swagata Bheda Vivarjitatma, from Sarvatra, from this we understand that there is no intrinsic differentiation between he and his feet. The intrinsic differentiations are simply figurative. Uh, okay, so then, so this was Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's point. Thus, he is different from the living entity who is always different from his outward body. We cannot claim this. Because of Krishna's transcendental position, it is very difficult for a layman to actually know the personality of God, Krishna, his holy name and fame, etc. His name, fame, form, and pastimes are all one and the same transcendental identity, and they are not knowable by the exercise of the material senses. The Supreme Lord's um, name and so on cannot be grasped by the mind and senses. अतः श्री कृष्ण नामादि न भवेद ग्राह्यम इंद्रियैः सेवोन्मुखे हि जिह्वादौ स्वयमेव स्फुरत्यतः. Madhya Leela Chaitanya Charitamrita chapter 17 text 136. Therefore, material senses cannot appreciate Krishna's holy name, form, qualities, and pastimes. When a conditioned soul is awakened to Krishna consciousness and renders service by using his tongue to chant the Lord's holy name and tastes the remnants of the Lord's food, the tongue is purified and one gradually comes to understand who Krishna really is. Therefore, because Krishna's name, form, and qualities are all on the absolute platform, um, Lord Krishna's name, form, qualities, pastimes, and so on cannot be perceived by the blunt material senses. To one who's engaged in his service, who's inclined towards his service, to certainly to such a person whose service is beginning with the tongue, then personally those Krishna's name, form, qualities, and so on become manifest. So that is what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying here, that one cannot understand Krishna's nature simply by studying about him. One has to engage in his devotional service. The transcendental relationship of the pastimes of the Lord is the source of still more bliss than one can experience by realization of Brahman or by becoming one with the Supreme. In Krishna's pastimes, he engages in various transcendental relationships, and the relationship that one can have with him, that cannot be compared to realization of Brahman. Realization of Bhagavan cannot be compared to realization of Brahman. Had it not been so, then those who are already situated in the transcendental bliss of Brahman would not have been attracted by the transcendental bliss of the pastimes of the Lord. We know very well that Srila Shukadeva Goswami was absorbed in impersonal Brahman meditation, but still he became attracted to Krishna.